welcome along to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
I'm Andrew Nicol.
And today on the show, we're talking about the top 10 mortgage advisors or mortgage brokers in New Zealand. And look, just before we get into this, I do want a disclaimer that these are the top 10 mortgage brokers and advisors that we've specifically worked with, we have knowledge of, and that because we've worked side by side with them, we actually know what they're a bit about. So if you are a mortgage broker listening to this show or you're using a mortgage broker, just because they're not mentioned on this list, if they're not, doesn't mean that they're not any good. It just means that we haven't met them yet.
And we'd love to meet you.
Yeah, exactly. So just before we jump into this top 10, I want to say the kind of criteria that we've been looking at. So first of all, as we said, people we've actually worked with and have specific knowledge of. And because of that, we understand a bit about their work ethic, what they're most interested in, their knowledge and experience, and also the points of difference. So we will talk about things like one mortgage broker in particular that we know is really, really good for first home buyers. Doesn't mean that everybody else isn't. It just means that this is something that's particularly strong for this particular mortgage broker. So let's jump into this. Number one on our list is Squirrel. Also known as Squirrel Money, used to be called Squirrel Financial Services. These guys are quite a big shop based out of Auckland, though they also work in Wellington and Christchurch. I just don't believe they have an office there.
No, they have a big online presence. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's correct. And what's really interesting here, big point of difference, is they're not commission based. So all of their mortgage brokers and advisors are salaried. And what does that mean, Andrew?
This means that you don't have the same incentive to refinance someone when maybe it's unnecessary. And I'm not saying that anyone else on this list would do that, but certainly if you're using a mortgage broker who's paid from the bank based on the volume of mortgage, then there is an incentive there to get you more money or refinance your mortgage. And so I think I really like the salary-based model where you someone knows exactly what they're getting paid, same as if you're going onto a bank, but with the skills and knowledge of a mortgage broker.
And I remember JB, the owner or CEO of Squirrel, saying that what that also means is that if they don't think it's right for somebody to be taking on additional lending, the mortgage broker themselves, the company is obviously, but the mortgage broker themselves is not financially incentivized in order to be able to go and get that. Other things that are interesting about Squirrel is they've got 5 advisors who speak Chinese and they publicize this, and 4 who speak various dialects of Indian. And so that's really good that if that is your primary language, then you know that you will have mortgage brokers who can speak that language.
And great in a diverse market like Auckland.
Yeah, exactly, because of that diverse population. But of course, one of the drawbacks if you're going to use a larger firm is there is always going to be some variation between advisors. So you'll have really, really good ones and you won't have ones that are quite as good as the really top ones. And you know some of the top ones, Andrew.
Yeah, so I just wanted to personally mention Elise, who's there. She is fantastic, particularly with a lot of investors that I work with that do builds or build an investment or an owner-occupied property. Elise is very, very knowledgeable in this space. She used to work for a company called New Build, who specialised in builds, as the name would suggest, and she's a real asset to Squirrel.
Yes.
Cool. Now let's go on to Lateral Partner. So Lateral Partners, Peter Norris, who does all the residential lending at Lateral, is actually previously Squirrel. So he headed up the mortgage division there at Squirrel. He's awesome to deal with. He's a personal friend of mine. They also in-house have a guy, Ben, who deals with development lending a lot of the time. So often I might work with developers who are using them and investors. So it's a really good one-stop shop from that side of things. Again, Peter, ex-head of mortgages at Squirrel, and he has a huge number of lenders. So a lot of finance companies, second-tier or private individuals who might be lending money as well, which kind of gives them a bit more of a cutting edge when you maybe don't fit the box of a normal bank. Only drawback there, they're the new kids on the block, but I would say that whilst their company is new, they are not new to the market.
Fantastic. Number 3 on our list is Tony Mounts from Tony Mounts Mortgages, or that I should rather say the whole company, Tony Mounts Mortgages and Insurance. These guys are Christchurch based and primarily serve the South Island. So if you're in Christchurch, they are the biggest game in town. And Tony Mounts himself is the top mortgage broker in the country by volume of written mortgages. Now, one thing to just be aware of is if you're using somebody who is writing a significant number of mortgages like Tony Mounts himself, he's going to be very efficient at getting you that lending, and then you might be working with somebody else to explain it a bit better. So he's great because he's got a lot of the experience, but don't expect to be sitting down with him for 2 hours while he explains the basics of a mortgage.
You've got 6 minutes basically, which I think is a positive. Some new people might see that as a negative.
He's very efficient with dealing with clients and the banks. Who's number 4?
Number 4 is Roost, who I just had lunch with last week. They're based in Queenstown. These are an awesome crew. They specialise in that Queenstown market or kind of around that Otago region. 2 of their advisors, Mark and Toby, have been awarded as top advisors in the country. Mark as number 15 and Toby at number 27. That was last year. And they are really well qualified office as well. So Mark and I think actually Toby are both AFAs already. Whilst there's a lot of change happening in the financial services industry, they are ahead of the game there. And Mark is quite an attention to detail guy. The only drawback that we had here was that there's not a lot of educational content on their website. So you do have to go to them to learn how to structure mortgages. You're not going to find that on the website.
Yeah, so if you're in the lower South Island or Queenstown, these guys are really good to be checking out. Number 5 on our list is Jeff Elias from Futurebound. Now, he, again, is based in Wellington but serves all of New Zealand, and he is particularly strong on debt reduction. And he has a specific program that helps people reduce that mortgage debt more quickly. He also has a 9-step wealth building program, which they've created themselves at Futurebound, and walks you through from, I think even buying a house might be step number 3 or 4 within that as well. I can't remember the exact step, but they're trying to serve you in every single part of that wealth journey. And because of that, they charge a fee for those services, whereas most of these other mortgage brokers wouldn't. But of course, that's a bit of the scope of what they're trying to offer is a bit wider.
And that's just to clarify, that fee is for the program. It's not for getting a mortgage. If you want to use them just for the mortgage services, I believe that's free. It's more if you want to really have that specialist advice around the debt reduction program. I can tell you this much: if I wanted to reduce my mortgage at a faster rate, Jeff is exactly who I would use. He's awesome. Next on our list is Maria Thaqual. She's a Christchurch broker. She's also an investor who works with me. So she's got a great understanding of investments and certainly the model that we use on a regular basis, which is that buy and hold model. She's really, really good and patient with first-time buyers. So I take my hat off to her as an ex-broker that she's so good and patient with those kind of things. She's a real hard worker and she just sticks with her clients. She's a lovely woman.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with Maria as well when she's been talking to us about stories where she's worked with first-home buyers and really going into bat with the banks as well for her clients. I've been impressed. Number 7 on our list, New Zealand home loans. Now, this is a very, is it the largest? If not, it's definitely one of the larger mortgage broking firms across the country. 70 offices in total around New Zealand. And so there's a real heft in that organisation side. These guys as well are very, very strong and have kind of hung their hat on debt reduction. If you see their Facebook ads, that it is all about how to pay your mortgage off more quickly. The way they do that is by setting you up with the likes of a revolving credit and then trying to teach you how to use that better. The one drawback that I have heard from some people, of course, this isn't the experience of everyone, is that they can sometimes set you up with these products, but if you're not actually using them properly, you're not actually going to pay your mortgage off more quickly.
And that's completely fair. I mean, I think unless you actually train yourself to have a surplus income and direct it into your mortgage, you're never going to get ahead faster. So these guys do have a really sophisticated software as well that will take the information from your bank. It's called
DebtNav.
DebtNav. Thank you very much, Ed. And if you use that to its fullest, you will get ahead. And I've worked with a lot of their offices, and just to mention a couple in Christchurch, Ben King and Em's here in Christchurch, they are rock stars. Em just works 1,000 hours a week. And then, in Auckland, you've got people like Kerry Augustine, who's been around in banking for 4,000 years. So he knows every trick in the book there. And I'm not thinking of everyone just off the top of my head, but they've got some great brokers there.
And so these are going to be really good if you are in a smaller rural area where there are perhaps not some of these other mortgage brokers we've mentioned on the list, or even if you're in Christchurch, you might want to use them. That's what I'm saying. But specifically, because they've got such a wide network, pretty much anywhere you are in New Zealand, you're going to be able to find a local broker if working with somebody who is local is really important to you. The other thing that is just a little bit of a drawback as well is that it's really hard to split bank with New Zealand home loans because I believe they're owned by Kiwi Bank, and so they're primarily structuring you with Kiwi Bank in that instance.
They do have an ASB relationship as well, and they do have some non-bank lenders, but really you have two main banks that you can deal with there. So if you're maybe an investor who has 20 or so properties, they might not be the right fit in that instance.
That's right. So you might start, if you've got a small portfolio, start with them, maybe move away as you grow that. Other big shop to talk about is Loan Market. These guys have 120 advisors around the country. So again, lots of heft. And what's interesting is when you look at the leaderboards of the top 30 mortgage brokers by volume in terms of mortgages written, 13 out of 30 are Loan Market advisors. These guys write a lot of mortgages. Now, one thing you'd probably think as well is perhaps Loan Market is submitting their data and applying for all of their brokers, and therefore you would naturally see that if more people are applying. But certainly they're doing a lot of business. They're writing a lot of mortgages.
And I work with a number of Loan Market brokers around the country, and they are great. And just to name a few, and in case I miss anyone, I'm sorry, this is just off the top of my head. Cam, Megan and Ryan in Auckland are just rock stars, and they're great people as well. You can sit down and have a beer and talk about your mortgage application with them. It's not stuffy old banker. So, not that I'm saying Tony is. But you can actually get to know these people. They're really, really skilled, and I believe all of them are investors themselves as well.
Now, talk to us about Andre from Vantage.
So Andre at Vantage, he's worked with a few of my clients. He's Wellington based. He actually is affiliated with a company a little bit like Opes. So we don't send him a lot of business, but he is an excellent broker and really understands that investor market. He's really big on split banking. I know he goes above and beyond, and just has been in the industry for so long that he gets a yes out of banks when other people might get a no.
Fantastic. And the last one we want to talk about is Eugene Brutzeichen, who was actually on the show from Twine Financial Advisors. He's also Auckland-based, and when you look at those lists over, this is for 2020, of the top 30 mortgage brokers, he was number 28 by volume. Important to note that volume isn't necessarily the value you're going to get. It just means the amount of mortgages they've written, so certainly is doing a lot of business. Now, something that really impressed us about Eugene is his approach to mortgage strategy and the report that he had written for specific investors that he had been working with. So I remember the specific report that he writes for his clients walks through why they're applying for specific banks, why they're going to this bank and not the other, and kind of lays out his thinking, which is really...
Before he even goes to the bank.
That's correct.
So I saw this report from him through one of my clients that was working with him, and I was so taken aback by the amount of work that went into it, for free, by the way, that I approached him and said, I'd love to send you more investors to work with because I wish everyone could do this level of detail. It was amazing.
Fantastic. So those are all our top 10. Of course, there you've got 2 national, 2 from Wellington, 3 from Auckland and 2 from Christchurch and 1 from Q-Town. So we have tried to take a range from around the country so you can investigate a couple if you're looking for mortgage brokers, go a little bit deeper and find one that's going to work for you. And if you've got some specific requirements like we've talked about here, that's where you might take a bit of a harder look at them as well. But all of them, we know, have really strong work ethics, really understand the banking process and will fight on your behalf to make sure you can get the lending that you're wanting to secure.
And investors themselves, which I think is really important.
Fantastic. Let's wrap it up there, but please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Really helps us get the message out to more people. And hey, if you've got an idea that you want us to talk about on the podcast, text us. Our number, Andrew and my number, is 5522. So if you pull out your phone, send us a quick text, we'll get that and we'll be able to reply back to you. And hopefully we can answer some more of the questions that you've specifically got on this show. Thanks for listening to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nicol.
I'm going to be back again tomorrow with even more daily strategies, tactics and insights to help you get the most out of the New Zealand property market. Until next time.